The true war for the souls of Morocco was no longer about buried gold. It was a crusade of supreme light against absolute darkness. We plunged into the suffocating concrete labyrinth of Casablanca, guided solely by a spiritual compass pointing toward a hidden saint. Deep within the chaotic, winding alleys of the old Medina lived Rachid, a man whose physical height was eclipsed only by his towering spiritual presence. To the human eye, the tall ascetic was completely invisible, a nameless ghost walking among the ignorant crowds of the modern city. But in the unseen dimensions, his title echoed with supreme reverence, recognized as a sovereign commander of righteous warrior Jinn. He was an uncompromising warrior of the hidden world, a man whose eyes carried the terrifying, unyielding weight of divine truth. This holy man did not use burnt offerings, animal blood, or scribbled talismans to fight the creeping shadows. His only weapon was the pure, incinerating resonance of the Creator's spoken word, a sound that made demons physically bleed. When we found him, he was already waiting in the dim light of his modest room, his face grim and pale. He had felt the seismic tremor of the azure flame awakening in the distant mountains, recognizing the ancient, world-ending threat. "The leashes of the underworld have snapped," he whispered, his voice vibrating with a frequency that made the room's shadows retreat. Behind him, the air rippled with the presence of thousands of unseen warrior Jinn, his loyal army waiting for the command to strike. Without packing a single bag or asking for a dirham of payment, the Master of Light strode out into the night. We arrived at the gates of the cursed ancestral fortress just as the sky turned a bruised, unnatural shade of violet. The air surrounding the Kasbah was so thick with demonic malice that my lungs burned, tasting of sulfur and centuries of spilled blood. The ruined widow and her feral son huddled in the dirt outside the walls, shivering as the roars of the legion shook the earth. Rachid approached the broken family, kneeling gracefully despite his massive frame. He placed his heavy, warm hands upon their foreheads. He recited a single, piercing verse of purification, a sound that shattered the remaining invisible chains wrapped around their fragile minds. The sun exhaled a cloud of black, foul-smelling mist, collapsing into a peaceful, unbroken sleep for the first time in months. The widow wept as the poisonous, parasitic obsession with the Red Mercury was forcefully ripped from her chest. "Stay behind the line of salt I cast, and do not open your eyes no matter what you hear," the towering warrior commanded. He pushed open the heavy wooden gates, and the Kasbah exhaled a hurricane of freezing wind and the stench of an open mass grave. I watched from the safety of the perimeter as he walked into the courtyard, entirely enveloped in a blinding white aura of supreme light. The unseen righteous Jinn attempted to follow their commander into the fray, but he raised a single hand, ordering his army to stand down. He intended to face the lords of the abyss completely alone, a testament to his absolute reliance on divine authority. The ground erupted around him, and the sky above the courtyard tore open, revealing the grotesque, shifting shapes of the underworld. 5 terrifying kings of the damned descended upon the mosaic floor, their bodies composed of twisting shadows and screaming faces. But they were merely the vanguard for the true nightmare that followed, a creature that made the air itself catch fire. The colossal Blue Jinn stepped from the wing of silence, a towering titan of burning, azure fire and pure, unadulterated malice. The demon roared, a sound that cracked the stone pillars, and hurled a spear of concentrated, smokeless flame directly at the holy man. Rachid did not flinch. He raised his right hand and spoke a word of absolute, uncompromising divine authority. The spear of fire shattered against an invisible shield of light, dissolving into harmless sparks that rained down upon the ancient stones. "You have trespassed in the realm of the living, servants of the Ash," his voice boomed, amplified by the heavens themselves. The war that ensued was not fought with swords of steel, but with colliding shockwaves of spiritual energy that tore the fabric of reality. The 5 demon kings lunged at the Master of Light, their claws tearing at the air, attempting to drag his soul into the suffocating depths of hell. He stood like a mountain of marble, chanting verses that fell from his lips like burning meteors, striking the demonic horde. Every syllable of the sacred text acted as a whip of blinding light, searing the flesh of the entities and forcing them to scream in agony. The courtyard became a terrifying kaleidoscope of clashing forces, crushing azure flames against impenetrable golden light. The holy man stepped forward, his aura expanding, pushing the dark army relentlessly back toward the gaping hole of the ruined vault. The Blue Jinn lashed out with a whip of pure dark energy, wrapping it around his arm, attempting to break the warrior's focus. The ascetic simply pulled the whip, dragging the massive demon toward him, and pressed his glowing palm against the entity's chest. The Blue Jinn convulsed violently, its azure fire flickering and dimming as the holy light burned away its supernatural core. Rachid possessed the sheer power to obliterate them completely, turning their ancient souls into absolute nothingness. But he refused to kill, choosing instead to subdue them with supreme grace, a mercy that earned him the ultimate respect of the demonic realm. The Legion of Horrors shrieked in unified terror and awe, realizing they had been utterly defeated by a merciful master. He drove them back step by agonizing step, forcing the sprawling mass of entities into the suffocating darkness of the subterranean vault. He raised his hands to seal the breach permanently, intending to lock them back into the abyss and purify the Kasbah forever. But as he prepared the final invocation, a sudden, chilling realization struck him like a blade of ice to the spine. The ancient stones of the fortress were vibrating with a different frequency, a subtle, parasitic hum hidden beneath the demonic roars. His illuminated eyes pierced through the physical walls to perceive the hidden, rotting spiritual architecture of the estate. He looked up at the ceiling of the Wing of Silence and saw it, a massive, spectral eye woven into the very mortar of the building. It was the lingering, malignant consciousness of the original tyrannical Qaid, the sorcerer who had built this cursed empire of blood. The dead magician's spirit had not moved on. It had embedded itself in the foundation, a parasite waiting patiently for decades. The holy man realized the terrifying truth. The demonic army was not just a security measure to guard the Red Mercury. Furthermore, the ascetic saw a dark vision of the corrupt global elites, the shadow cabals who rule the world, marching toward this very Kasbah. These wicked billionaires and politicians were actively hunting for the Red Mercury to unlock supreme technological domination and total control. He witnessed in his mind how these elites were preparing unspeakable rituals, gathering innocent children for mass sacrifice. They intended to offer the blood of the young to the underworld, trading innocent lives for the forbidden knowledge contained in the demonic fluid. These Atlas Mountains are the graveyard of rich, ancient civilizations, the ascetic spoke aloud, his voice echoing with profound sorrow. Countless treasures lie buried in this earth, but the corrupt governments seek to hoard them all, intentionally starving the population to maintain control. We now live in a one-world system, an invisible empire where borders are merely illusions designed to divide the weak. The Dajjal rules this rotting earth from the shadows, refusing to show his face until humanity is completely broken. He uses the presidents, the kings, and the politicians as mindless marionettes, dancing on the strings of absolute corruption. If I clear this vault, the Dajjal's marionettes will easily claim the Red Mercury, dooming humanity to an era of high-tech enslavement.
You built a prison to find a strong host, but the wicked elites of this world are far worse than you, the ascetic whispered to the sorcerer's eye. He had to make a horrifying tactical choice to prevent this supernatural plague from falling into the blood-stained hands of the global shadow government. Instead of speaking the words of banishment, the warrior lowered his hands and abruptly changed the frequency of his divine chant. He spoke the verses of eternal binding, forcing the defeated Blue Jinn and the 5 demon kings into a new, terrifying pact. He bound the colossal demons to the Red Mercury, ordering them to execute any corrupt politician, secret society, or greedy mortal who dared to approach. You are now the guardians of the Ash, his voice commanded, shaking the very bedrock of the Atlas Mountains. When the shadow cabals of this world come with their stolen wealth and sacrificed blood, you will tear their flesh from their bones. The Blue Jinn, realizing it now served the ascetic who had spared its life, bowed its horned head in absolute, terrifying submission. The Master of Light essentially took the dead sorcerer's demonic army and weaponized them against the sorcerer and the corrupt human world. To ensure the demons never broke this pact, Rachid summoned one of his most powerful, righteous warrior Jinn. You will remain here as the eternal overseer, Rachid commanded the loyal spirit, tasking him with guarding the Kasbah from the corrupt government. He wove a web of pure, blinding light across the entrance of the vault, sealing the cavern with the demonic guards and the righteous warden inside. The eye on the ceiling widened in absolute panic as it realized it was now locked in a cage with the very monsters it had sought to escape. A cacophony of monstrous roars and the agonizing screams of the dead magician echoed from the depths, a horrific symphony of eternal torment. The holy man sealed the physical wall with a final, booming command, drawing a blinding seal of divine light that burned into the plaster. The freezing wind abruptly stopped, and the heavy, suffocating aura of the Kasbah lifted, replaced by an eerie, absolute silence. He walked out of the fortress, his white aura fading back into his flesh, his face pale and exhausted from the monumental clash. We rushed to meet him, helping the weary warrior to the ground as he caught his breath under the clearing night sky. The widow looked at him with wide, hopeful eyes, asking if the nightmare was finally over and the ancestral gold was free. He shook his head slowly, his voice grave and completely devoid of any celebratory joy, as he looked at me, the humble chronicler. The gold is not for the family, nor is it for the child-sacrificing elites who seek to rule this world for the Dajjal, the ascetic explained softly. He pointed a long, calloused finger directly at my chest, his illuminated eyes piercing through my very soul. I have bound the demon kings and stationed my own righteous general to slaughter the shadow cabals who will inevitably hunt for this Red Mercury. But you, my son, are the only mortal spiritually permitted to break that seal and claim the treasure when the destined hour arrives. I gasped, the terrifying weight of his prophecy striking me like a physical blow, realizing I was now tethered to this cursed fortune. The holy man turned his intense gaze back upon the widow, ensuring his next words pierced the very core of her understanding. You and your son must return to the Kasbah, but you will live only in the outer courtyard, acting as the mortal anchors to the seal. You are strictly forbidden from ever attempting to sell this land, for transferring the deed will instantly break the spiritual lock. If the corrupt politicians send their armies here, you must let them enter the Wing of Silence, where the Blue Jinn will butcher them. The greedy will become food for the underworld, and this fortress will serve as a deadly trap for the wicked elites of the earth. We will guard it the widow vowed, her voice steady and resolute, the toxic ambition completely scrubbed from her soul. We will let the stones rot, and we will watch the child killers burn in the azure flame. The holy man smiled softly, standing up to tower over us once more, turning his back on the Atlas Mountains as his duty was fulfilled. Without another word, the holy warrior vanished into the shadows of the dawn, leaving us with the terrifying secrets we were sworn to protect. Years have passed since that night of supreme light. The widow rests in peace, her son guards the gates, and the Dajjal's puppets remain locked out. I remain hidden in the shadows, waiting for the destined day when I alone will walk into the dark to claim what belongs to the light.